Good evening. Welcome to Darfur Television Live. It's me, Jacob Berry. Today I will be talking about the massacres that are taking place in South Sudan against South Sudanese people and Darfurian as well. And this issue, I will be covering up the reports that are being folded by the international news agencies as well as the UN report about the massacres that are going on. And so this is absolutely a very serious crime. So first of all, I want to confirm this, what the UN say. The United Nations mission in South Sudan has confirmed that civilians were killed and the massacres are taking place in Bantu Hospital and Mosque last Tuesday and Wednesday, also disclosing that the radio station in Bantu is used against the people as a hatred taunt to try to, to provocate against the people who are living over there. The rebels who took over Bantu last week were also accusing of killing civilians from both South Sudan and Darfurians who are in South Sudan. This is absolutely because those people who are there were not supporting their orchestrated atrocities against the civilians, and that's why they are targeting. And they also accuse the Darfurians as well, who were standing side of the South Sudanese government. But that's absolutely very challenging. I think people in like South Sudan, they need to understand that people in Darfur have never been against them, but they are so they're friends, and they will be standing side by side all the time. So in a statement absolutely released this morning, the peacekeeping mission stated that it strongly condemns these targeted civilians of killing of civilians based on their ethnic origins and nationalities in Bantu. And the UN say that it confirmed that when SPLA and the opposition forces captured Bantu on 15 and 16 of April, they searched the number of places where hundreds of South Sudanese and foreign nationals had taken refuge and killed hundreds of civilians after determining their ethnicity of nationality. So let me clarify that very carefully. I think the African people have some problems that they don't realize. First of all, it's if we don't know who our enemy is, and rather than just say killing the enemy, but we're turning the guns against each other. And I think that's what people of Darfur and South Sudan need to clarify, that to end the clashes between them, as well as the end the clashes between South Sudanese themselves, and try to tackle the problem by a peaceful way. And I think this is also another challenge for the South Sudan to try to, to be developed when the clashes or conflict or massacres are taking place. It's going to be very difficult for the other people to overcome, to tackle the problems in this area. And I also want to, include in my discussion here about the Darfurians, particularly who are living in South Sudan or anywhere in the world, including me. This message will be like, I want to talk to you guys generally. So we have to think very carefully about, the consequences that we are encountering everywhere we go. So the best way to solve those problems is to go back to our country and try to fight against the government of Sudan, rather than just, leaving for other states and going to see, in the places where there is no solution for our problems. And I think no one will solve our problem. Only we can solve our problem. And to solve that problem, we must strive for it and try to think, broadly how to overcome those challenges. So people who were killed in South Sudan, they were there because they didn't have a place to go. In Darfur, there was war, and they can't get out of Sudan because there are a lot of issues over there. But the second thing that I need to say, it's like the Darfurians who are already in the other countries have to unite themselves and try to come to tackle this problem. They first have to fight this government and to overcome the issues that are unfolding and that are pushing them to get out of their homeland and go to look for refuge in the countries. One another another important thing that I want to figure out, and it's absolutely very, notorious for the people of Darfur to try to see that is the people of Darfur have to, leave the policies that are being orchestrated by Arabs for more than 500 years, and that's absolutely the religion itself, which is destroying or undermining the capability of Darfuris to unite themselves, and they are spending their time and falling for something that's not beneficial for them. And that's when the conflict started in South Sudan. They didn't have to take any side, neither government nor the opposition in that country. You have to be in the middle, because if you take a side, at the end of the day, you will absolutely face some challenges. Maybe you would not, the side that you're supporting might not be successful, and then the other side that you didn't support will absolutely commit the atrocities, because of what happens over there, and that's another challenge. So I think the people of Darfur, they have to read, or to fully study the history of any state or a country that they are living in. Plus, they didn't have to think about, the Arabic tongue, which calls like Islam or any religion. They have to be only humans, and that's all. Because I think if you guys are going to hide yourself in a mosque, I think that would be a challenge, because everyone will see that people who are in a mosque might be the one terrify me. And I think it's not just I'm insulting the or hatred or I'm Islamophobic person, but I think in 21st century, whenever you want to protect yourself, you don't have to go to the place where exactly everyone hates it. And that's mosque today in 21st century. Everyone hates that word to say. So we have to look for an alternative place to live in, rather than just taking refuge in a place which is itself need to be targeted by a lot of people. And the other hand is also the Darfuris, who are now living in Europe, United States, Canada, Australia, and some of them in Africa as well, and Israel, have to unite themselves and kind of fight for Darfur. So, because I think this time around is a time for people of Darfur to stand together, shoulder to shoulder, to fight against our enemy, and also to put an end to those brutal regimes in Sudan. And if it's in my own perspective, I think the Darfuris have to think about how to decide their self-determination, rather than thinking of having Sudan in general. And while at the end of the day, they are not going to be able to, to take it over because of some reasons. First, economically, we are not stable, politically not stable as well, and also, socially, we're not, strong enough to do that. So let me address those issues first of all. Now, in a social terms, the problem with Darfur is because when they are following the Arab culture rather than following the African culture or following the Darfuri culture itself, they lost a huge
alert from calendar
things in the world.
Monday evening talk tab.
One thing is the thing that they lost most is when they follow the Arab culture that allows someone to marry more than one wife at the same time, and bringing kids without knowing how to breed them or adopt them. So that's one of the things that Darfur is supposed to leave it. They have to marry one wife, 2 children, or maximum 4 kids, and who you can care for them. You will be responsible of those 2 or 4 kids. And then, so that's one thing that they need to end. Second, they need to end something called the forceful marriage, that I take my daughter or son and gave to someone else's daughter or son, because that's not going to work out. The marriage is supposed to base on mutual love and respect and prosperity of both families, and rather than just taking your kids and giving away as someone's just giving sweets to someone to eat. So this is not going to work out. Third of all, it's also in a social life. We don't need only one person in the home to work, but we need all the family members to work to try to provide services for their kids and service for everyone who's living there. That's going to be okay. Now, in economic term, if the whole family members are operating not just waiting for one person to provide them food, they will be capable of changing this economic downturn. And they will also end so-called the redundancy in the family members. That's going to be okay. At the same time, if in a political side, the politics will be, built if the society is strong and it's well educated. Now, if you have 2 kids or 3 kids or 4 kids, they will absolutely be less. So they're going to help you to do that. But if you don't have 10 kids, you will be able to provide everything for your kids. Like 2 kids, you can pay for their school, for housing and food. Adoption will be easy for you. You wouldn't have more challenges. So in a way that you have those 4 kids around, they are educated and did everything well, so they will be able to to develop their own future. Because if you start out something, then they will try to complete that thing. But if you have 10 kids, so how could you feed them? How do you provide education for them? How do you provide the housing for them? You don't have anything. Third of all, when the politics are very strong, when those 2 kids are well educated and they know what's going on, and in every society or every household has 2 kids or 4 kids that are well educated, they easily overcome the challenges. But if you have 10 kids in every household, and each 10 kids have nothing to do, that will be a problem. So that's why now people of Darfur, are facing problems, not just a gun problem, but also social difficulties, because they are not, following their own culture, but they're following their culture, which I think is not appropriate culture in 21st century to adopt, in a society. So our society is supposed to go back to our own grandparents' system, which was not, allowed someone to marry someone by force, but as a mutual love between the people. And they were not also marrying underage kids. They were allowing the woman to choose who she wanted to marry. And that was absolutely democracy, as we have now in some traditions, in our tradition as well. But people are, overthrown and to some direction that's absolutely, I think, it's wrong direction that people are following. Now, the second side, also the political side, is we need to have a strong administrative policy that we can administer the people and provide every political system in the world that works and that will function our society in a good way. So, but if we just say we want to leave, like the people live in Sudan, so why do we fight? Because I think if we're following the same politics that are practiced in Sudan, that's not going to work out, and therefore people don't need to fight. But we're fighting for democracy to provide equal rights for every person. And since our vision is one, the question would remain why Darfurians are not uniting themselves, and then they are making revolutions after revolution, which are endlessly have no benefit. If they are not united at the end of the day, they wouldn't be in a solution, because the number of factions and fractions in the entirely in the revolutions, it's undermining the capability of Darfur society. But if all the rebel groups join force and name one revolution front, which will overthrow the government of Sudan, not just in Sudan, but first of all in Darfur. So they have to overthrow the government in Darfur, and then they can go to Sudan to join force with other Darfur revolutions. That would be the solution to the problem. And now, please, my fellow citizens, I want you to listen carefully. If you don't change your social status versus your cultural society, will be in a problematic situation. Plus, your economic, downturn will not be also ended, because, as I mentioned earlier, that having 10 kids, it's not a good news for you. It's absolutely bad news. It's not because I don't like kids, but it's because having more people and you're not educating, it's absolutely bad responsibility, and you will be in a problem because you're not able to provide everything they need. Second, the economic downturn, if we don't end the redundancy in society, which means The society is supposed to be an individualistic style, which every individual must provide something to the family members, not just one person working at home and others are sleeping. Third, if we don't unite ourselves in the political side as well, we will fail to overcome the challenges that are happening in Darfur. And I will end my conversation here today. And next time I'll be talking about different issues that are, concerning the people of Darfur. But please join me to do that. And please, you have to stop something called polygamy, which means marrying more than one wife or husband at the same time. So this is not going to work out in 21st century. We have to have 2 or 4 kids, one wife, one husband at the same time, and every individual at home is supposed to be working to provide everything for himself and for the family members as well. Thank you for watching Darfur Television. We'll be back next time.